Hey everybody! So today on Miss Julia's Old Spool Sewing School, I am going to walk you through how to make a little llama. Ain't he cute? I am going to outline the materials that you need in just a second. I am going to walk you through this. If you have any questions, please message me, comment below, let me know where you're stuck, what you're having trouble with. Remember, there's always easier ways to go through things and there's not one right way to do something. So let's make this guy. Hey! All right, how this goes. Let's see how this goes. All right, so to make a llama, if you got a kit from me in the past few days, that's fantastic. But if you didn't, you need felt in whatever color you want the body of the llama. You need saddle felt. You need a little bit of felt to make her snout. And either regular thread or embroidery floss. I love to use embroidery floss because I think it adds a little bit of a punch. You need a hand sewing needle. You need the pattern, which, by the way, this pattern I made last Christmas, 2 Christmases ago, and you can find it on my website with a full color picture tutorial. So if you are confused or if you like having pictures to learn along with as well as a video, please go on my website, go on my blog, and you will find the Felt Llama holiday ornament page. You also need your handy dandy fabric scissors. You need paper scissors as well. If I find out anybody at home is using their fabric scissors to cut paper, I might have a little bit of a heart attack, but that's okay. And you need glue. I do not even care if you use Elmer's school glue or this. Anybody who's been here has seen me use this stuff, which is really awesome fabric tack. It's kind of hard to squeeze out, but I love how quickly it's tacky and how quickly it dries. You will also need a pen. You do not need pins, but if you have them, that's great. And obviously you're gonna need a little bit of fluff. Little bit of fluff. All right, let's do this. So the first thing you're gonna do is make space on your work table. And you're gonna grab the llama pattern and you are going to cut all of these out on the line. This is the size that we want to cut our felt. So I got started on one. Let me finish it up. And remember to take, just like when we're cutting fabric, we want to take long snips. See how I move the scissors around as I go and I don't take short little chops? If you can't get that detail of the llama's fluffy cheeks, that's okay if you just round it out. Oh, my phone is ringing and I can't get off Facebook or Instagram. Oh well. All right, got my llama. Now, if you got a kit from me, I was rationing my felt, so you did not get a lot of felt. You need to cut 2 of these little llamas. Oops, let me get the space in between his ear. If you stick your llama directly into the center of the felt, you will not have enough to cut 2 llamas. We want to be good and be reasonable and thoughtful about how we use our materials. So instead of sticking them right in the middle or sideways or anything like that, we're going to go down towards the corner. It's always the best way to do it. Now, I am going to put a pin or 2 in the llama's body, and I am going to cut it out on my own because I can do that. But for anybody who maybe is a little nervous about cutting out your pieces or making sure that you have enough space on your felt, I highly recommend grabbing some sort of writing utensil. A pencil's fine if it writes on your felt. A marker is also fine. I would recommend not a dark black Sharpie, but if that's what you got on hand, hey, make it work. So let's stick a few pins in this guy. And if you notice, I'm not cutting them out on the fold because often when we cut on the fold, we use up a lot more fabric than we want to. So if you cut on a single layer of something, which I know is a pain in the butt for me to tell you to do, that will work really well. So let's chop this guy out. Leave him on the table as much as you can. little poofy tail. Llama needs a poofy tail. Has anyone ever met llamas in real life? I haven't yet, and I'm kind of disappointed about it. Although in the next town over from where we live, there are multiple alpaca farms, which they are from the same family. So I imagine it would be just as exciting to meet an alpaca. Also, one of the alpaca farms is also like a farm shop and has cute farm goods and yarn that they make from their alpacas, which just excites me so much when you can meet a farmer who makes their own fiber. And then I know the ladies who run the place knit. Like, come on, you can raise the animal and then shear it and then make fiber from it and then wear a sweater from that animal. How cool is that? You can wear the sweater made from the animal while you're feeding that animal. It's the little things that excite me. I really would love a farm one day, so that's why it really excites me. So here's one of my llamas. Let's, for fun, cut the other one out by tracing him out. And you saw I flipped him over because look, if I put this llama like this on my piece, it'll fit. But if you have a smaller piece, maybe it's gonna get cut off here. Look how much fabric I can save if I wedge that llama in a little bit differently. So we'll put some pins in there. If you don't have pins, that's all good. Stick your finger in the middle and hold it down while you trace. It'll make it a little bit easier. Where'd my pen go? So if you're gonna trace the llama with pen, you wanna do it light and easy. See, I'm kind of even doing just little hash marks. Do-do-do-do-do. Tracing off my llama. It's funny, whenever we do YouTube videos, my friend and I, she always tells me I have to stop singing. And today I don't even care. I'm just gonna keep singing because that's where I'm at. Now I'm gonna cut right on that line. Now, a note. Look, I blew right past those weird little things on the cheek. I can go back and get them. But a note about felt. Guys, felt is made most of the time, or at least this felt that I'm using right now is made out of plastic. I don't love that. I've made the move recently to switch to all wool felt at the shop because wool felt is better for the environment. It will one day biodegrade while plastic felt will not. And I can support smaller businesses. And remember that love I have for farmers. You can support farmers when you buy wool felt because that is a product from a farm while plastic is a product from a factory. But my reason in saying that is a lot of the kids who come to class here are used to me using these friction pens, wherever the heck I just threw that friction pen. These guys, Pilot brand makes the friction pens, which are friction with an X. And the beauty of these is that they're erasable pens. And I often will take fabric over to the iron and press away my marks. But guess what's gonna happen if we take this plastic felt and we put it under the iron? Is it gonna melt? Is it gonna melt real quick? So do me a favor and just don't do that. Or if you want to do that, have mom and dad help you. Put the setting on real low and use a pressing cloth. So put your felt down and put another piece of cloth on top of it. And that's really only if you're using the friction pens, because if you're not, then your marks are going to live there. So because it lets to make believe that the pen I just used is a real pen as opposed to my friction pen, I'm just going to make that guy the inside of my llama. So I'm going to lay the two pieces on top. I did a pretty decent job of cutting that out. I don't really care to make it any more perfect. You just want it to resemble a llama, right? Resemble a llama. All right, let me check in on everybody. Everyone seems to be good. Lily said alpacas spit. Yeah, I bet you they do. I've heard that before. But maybe that's their way of showing love, right? Okay, so got your two llamas. I'm gonna quickly cut out my two saddle pieces, which are those two smaller kind of D-shaped pieces on the pattern. Anybody who got a kit already has a pre-cut circle of tan that I cut for you because I noticed that cutting small circles is really tricky for kids. But if you do not have a kit, you just need to cut a small round tan circle, but you can make whatever color you want. I'm gonna freehand cut these guys right now, but what you guys would normally do, because we're being good and following our pattern, is you cut that out, you pin it on, or you trace it out, and you'd have your two. So I'll make this the smaller saddle. And I'll make this the bigger saddle. Yeah, see, it only has to be a little bit bigger. If anything, that's a little too big. But there's that guy, there's that guy. So we can already start to see, oh yeah, that's a way too big saddle. So I'll make that a little bit smaller. So there's the beginnings of my llama. Let's make this a little bit smaller. How's that look? Looks darn tootin' good, if you ask me. All right, so where do we start? Where do we start? So you have a few options at this point. Oh, look, I still have tags on my sweater. Nice move, Joel. Anyway, you have a few paces to go from here. You can do as minimal amount of hand sewing as you want and leave it to just have to sew the two llamas together to do the sewing. If you want to do more sewing, you can sew these guys on and this guy on. It is easier to work as flat as possible and not layered up. So I'm gonna put this aside for right now. And I am actually going to stitch on these two saddles and I'm going to stitch my face in. If you don't wanna stitch the face in, because I didn't really supply a template to stitch the face on, just grab a skinny marker and just draw a little face in. Looks great. I've seen lots of kids do it. So here's the embroidery floss. If you're using regular thread, that works just fine too. You saw that I pulled off my little sleeves off the embroidery floss. You have to be very careful when you open it and gently, if you see they package it so it's a ring. Don't just go grabbing at it and pulling apart. You will quickly tangle your mess. And if anyone remembers, you want to cut a piece that is long as your forearm. So I hold the thread in my fingertips and I will pull it out nice and long, and I will cut it at the end of my arm. You want that piece of thread about as long as your arm. Any longer, it'll easily get tangled. Any shorter, you'll be finding yourself very quickly getting a new piece of yarn. Now, embroidery floss, if you're using embroidery floss, it is stranded. See how I can pick all of these apart and I don't know if you guys can see that well, but embroidery floss is stranded. Skylar, I'm gonna save it to my Instagram page and to my YouTube. So when I'm done with it, you can come back and look at it all and you can fast forward through everything. Sound good? Hopefully. So anyway, back to the stranded embroidery floss. Stranded embroidery floss, there are 6 strands here. We are gonna separate out 2 because unfortunately I did not give everybody a needle threader. I just don't have enough to give everyone a needle threader. So if you can see, I got 2 in this hand and I've got the other 4 in this hand. And we are gonna gently pull them apart. Embroidery floss is what we call plied, so it is lightly twisted together so that it stays like a single piece of floss. And you can see I'm having a good hard time separating it, so I'm gonna go the other side, and I'm gonna try and do 3 and 3, and then I'll pull 2, because I find 3 and 3 is a little bit easier. Come on, embroidery floss, don't do this to me! It's just putting up a fight, like everything else lately. That's okay. Sometimes it's helpful to have a third hand to lightly pull. Hey-o, got it. All right, got some strands. I'm gonna grab my needle. I'm gonna thread my needle. I would highly recommend, in the times that we are in, to not lick your thread and try to put it through the needle in case somebody else is helping you. If you have a needle threader at home, use it, because it'll make life so much easier, or you're just gonna take a second and thread your thread through the needle. An easy way to do it is actually if you take the thread and over the point you fold the thread in half and you pull it tightly, you can get that little bit through the needle, that kind of tight fold. But anyway, so once you've got your needle threaded, you're gonna wanna tie a knot in one side. You can do a basic just overhand knot where you pull it through, but you're gonna wanna kind of get it in chunky, or if you can do it my way, I'm gonna tie a knot, and I'm gonna lay these guys right on top. If you want to use a pin, you can. If you want to put a dab of glue in the middle, maybe put a little dab of glue. You know what, I'll put a little bit of Elmer's, because everybody seems to have an Elmer's glue stick at home, right? So I'm going to take some Elmer's, and I'm going to put it in the middle so it doesn't get in the way of my stitching. And that should hold it in place while I sew. Looks good to me. That guy can go aside. I'm gonna do a simple running stitch to put these guys in place, and that'll give me a cute little dash line of decor through my saddle. So you're gonna start from the back. You wanna come in from the back so that your knot is not on the outside. So I'm gonna poke through from the back, and I'm gonna come up on my blue saddle, pull tight, and I'm gonna make a stitch, And right now, it does not matter how far apart our stitches are. You do it however you think is good, but you want to put enough stitches to hold your saddle down. I think that looks cute. And I'm using whatever colors I got on hand, so this weird pistachio green is what I got. Shout out to a good friend of mine, Christina, who actually made a lot of these kits possible that I did the past few days. She gave me her grandmother's old stash, and with it came big like display boxes of embroidery floss. There had to be hundreds in there, and I was able to pack a bunch of kits with that embroidery floss. So it's all good if you don't go as fast as I do, but you saw I went up and down and up and down. So we're going to do another running stitch. You're going to come from the back, you're going to make a stitch. Now, what happens if you accidentally come back around front? See how my thread's coming around front, and I go in from the front. Uh-oh, and I got a piece of thread wrapped around. Well, it's because a running stitch, you go from the up to down, and then down, down, like you go like a dolphin, I say, jumping through the ocean. You go under the water, and then you jump above the water, and then you go under the water, and you jump above the water. So if you don't do that, this happens. This is why I usually thread all the needles for any students with one end loose. You'll pull your needle out, and you'll use your needle to unpick your last stitch. It's a great way to fix your mistakes in hand sewing. So I got that. I'm gonna rethread my needle. Let's see if I can do it the way I was showing you guys. Got it folded over the needle. Got a little pinch. Look at that, went through easy. And I've got 3 strands too, instead of 2, like I said before. So now I'm on the back. I gotta come up from the back again, and I'm just going right along the saddle. Up and down, and up and down. And I'm not even so concerned that they're uneven up here, because my stitches in a little bit are going to cover over that and make it look good. So look, see how cute and decorative just a simple running stitch is? I love it. So now we have our needle back towards the back and the thread at the back. We have to tie a knot. You can either go underneath your last stitch over here, or what I always like to do is if you go into the felt a little bit, so you see I didn't pierce through the front, I just pierced the back of the felt, and I put my needle halfway through, and then here's the point of my needle. I'm gonna wrap the working thread, so the stuff that's coming out of the project, around my needle 1, 2, 3 times, and then I'm gonna pull my needle the rest of the way out, and I've got a knot, and I can cut my thread. Fabulous. So there is our saddle. That baby's not coming off, making them look good. I'm gonna unthread this guy, because now we are gonna thread up with our black embroidery floss, because we are gonna put the schnoz on and the face. So I'm going to use a little bit of embroidery floss that I have here, and hopefully, you know, as long as your arm. And I'm going to split it just like I did before. See how nice and slow I go to split my embroidery floss, and see it even still gets a little tangled. If that happens and you've got enough embroidery floss to start sewing, just cut that tangle off. But like I said, it really does help if you have an extra person hold either the other, and you just kind of gently unply it. There we go. I'm gonna thread my needle. Let's see if I can do it again, the fold it in halfway. So you fold it in half and slide it off the point, and you're gonna stick it right back through. Almost. I'll try one more time before I use my needle threader. It's the luxuries in life. Oh, I missed one. You know what? It doesn't even matter. I'm gonna pull that right off. That was the single strand that came off my 3, so now I only have 2, but that's totally okay. I'm gonna tie a knot in the end again. And if you have a really hard time tying a knot, ask an adult. And I'm gonna grab my schnoz, and let's stitch that schnoz on. It look all right? I think it looks good. So I'm gonna come up right in the middle, and we are going to stitch the mouth. So I'm right in the middle, I'm gonna do the mouth. So I'm gonna make a small stitch going straight down. Can you guys see it? I hope so. I'm gonna go straight down, little stitch. Now this is really similar to the running stitch in that I'm gonna work from, you're on the back, so you have to come from the back again. And now I'm gonna do one side. So here I was gonna get a little piece of scrap fabric so you guys could see what I'm going for here. The shape of the mouth is gonna be something very similar to this. This is your first stitch. Okay, there's our schnoz, there's our first stitch. So I came up here, went down here. Now I'm gonna come up over here, and I'm gonna do this part. So that's another stitch. So 1, 2, come up at 3, go down at 4. And then I'm going to come up at 5 and go down at 6. So keeping that here so you can see that. Let's keep going. So I'm up at, this is number 3, and I'm going to go right down at the bottom of that line to make a little one side of the mouth. And then I'm going to come up at the bottom again over here. We're going to try and make it even, or I'm going to have a lopsided smile. That's okay too. And we're going to go down right in the middle. Cable. Adorable. And now we're going to stitch a little stitch or two to make a nose. So I'll go across. I'll do one right on top of that so it's a little bit thicker. Looks pretty darn cute. And now let's do our eyes. Now the eyes, I like to make her very cutesy and feminine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do eyes like 1, 2, and then I'm gonna put eyelashes on it. So that's a stitch, eyelash and eyelash. You can also just do little dots if you want to. Like I said, you can grab a marker if the stitching is not your thing, because what we're kind of doing right now is we're embroidering. So I'm gonna come up and I could mark this, but I'm gonna try and eyeball it and see. I'm gonna eyeball the eyeballs. See how decent I can do. So there's one stitch. I'm going to come up over here. So this is super similar to a back stitch for anybody who's been in my classes and has done embroidery, or anyone who's done embroidery before. Let's give her a little eyelash. Do, 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 do. Another little eyelash. Oop, yeah, that doesn't look so great, does it? You know what, we'll leave it. If I make a mistake on the other side. So now I'm gonna try and get her eye. Because you know what, nothing's perfect. I like my sewing projects to have a little bit of character. There we go. You're going right back in that same hole if you want her to. She look all right? I think she looks all right. Let's find out. This goes to show you that I am by no means perfect. How our eyes look. I think those look pretty cute. So just like before, we're gonna end on the back. We're gonna I'm gonna try and go underneath one of my last stitches actually and make sure I'm not piercing the front, which I'm not. And remember, halfway through, grab the working thread, wrap it around your needle, 1, 2, 3 times is good, and then pull it the rest of the way out and you get a nice little knot that forms right down there by your fabric. Because if your knot's not close to your fabric and it's further away, your stitches are gonna start to come loose. All right, there we go. There she is. Ain't she a cutie so far? So on my other llamas in the picture on my website, she's got little pink ears. I'm gonna put that on last if I really want to. Oof, those eyes were much better than the eyes I just made. And you can see I also did some decorative stitching around her saddle. So if you know how to do decorative stitches, these are French knots. This is a blanket stitch. You're more than welcome to do it. I'm just keeping it simple today. Nice and accessible, but those are all options. Also, if you notice, she doesn't have pom-poms on yet. We're not putting pom-poms on till the end. So here is my llama. All right, she is ready to get stitched together. So we're gonna put the 2 layers together. Again, if you have pins, it's super helpful to stick a pin or 2 in her to help everybody stay in place. If you don't have pins, that's okay. You know what also works? Binder clips. Paper clips. You can stick a paper clip on some spots so that she stays in place, or you can just hold it together. So I'm gonna grab my embroidery floss of my funky color. You can switch it up here if you want. I'm just using the same color because it's what I've got. And I'm gonna thread my needle. Ugh, you know, I got it in the first try and then I got cocky. I can't do it anymore. Come on. Come on, thread. Fine, I'm gonna use my needle threader. Leave me be. These are the best needle threaders, by the way. I get them on Amazon. They're little metal ones. They do not break like the ones with wire. Always do, especially when you're trying to jam three threads of embroidery floss through a needle. Okay, there's that. Again, I'm only gonna knot one side, so you tie a knot in one end. And let's get to stitching, shall we? Now, this is gonna take a while. I'm gonna peek up and try and answer questions if there's anybody still watching and curious about stuff. I saw, Avery, that you sent me a few questions. I'm gonna get to them. So what I like to do is I'm gonna leave this underbelly part open because I find this is the best place to stuff with fluff. If you're gonna stuff with fluff, you do not have to stuff with fluff. You can sew the two pieces together and call it a day. But so I'm gonna start right around here. This is where I'm gonna start. Now, I am going to do do we wanna do a whip stitch or a blanket stitch? Do we go slightly tricky or slightly easier? Let's go slightly tricky. So I'm going to put my needle in just the back layer. Can you see what I'm doing? I'm pulling back her front leg, the front leg layer, and I'm gonna go right from the inside to the outside of that back leg. I'm gonna pull tight. Now I got a big fat knot, so I'm just gonna make sure that it's gonna get hidden. And I'm gonna hold her with the edge that I'm gonna sew facing up. So you can see I'm gonna work to the left because I'm right-handed. So we're going to the left. And this is how we do a blanket stitch. Now, a whip stitch is very easy. A whip stitch is one of your most basic hand sewing stitches. You're gonna go front to back, pull through. And then you move over a little bit and you go front to back and you pull through. And that's, I pulled through. So we'll put that stitch in there just for now. So there's a front to back and a pull through. During this part of sewing, we have to make sure our stitches are close together. You cannot make a stitch from here and then over to here. You're gonna have a big old hole in your llama. And I'm gonna put another bit. So you can see my stitches are really close together. I'm gonna pull tight. But now I'm gonna switch it up. I wanna show everybody a blanket stitch because a whip stitch is very straightforward. Whip stitch front to back, you go all the way around and we're gonna stop here. Now, but if you wanna do a blanket stitch, which is a little bit more decorative, it's what I did on both of these guys. And what a blanket stitch gives you is that little cute border of color around them. So you can see I did running stitches in orange here and then I did blanket stitches all the way around. So they look a little bit different. A blanket stitch, you're gonna still poke from front to back, but the best thing to do is hold the thread because you're gonna come through and you're gonna make sure that your needle is in front of the thread. And you guys see how I did that? My needle is in front of my thread. And you pull tight, and then I'm gonna move over a little bit, and I'm gonna do it again. My needle is gonna be in front. So here is my needle. My thread, the thread coming out of my project is behind it. And when you do that, this is the first time you're gonna see what a blanket stitch kind of looks like. You get this little horizontal piece. Can you guys see that? There's this little piece that's sitting on the edge because of the blanket stitch. Let's keep going. I'm gonna go from front to back and I'm gonna make sure my needle is over my thread and then I'm gonna pull tight. Can you guys see the little ridges forming? So there we go. I'm gonna go all the way around like that. And again, you see how close together my stitches are? You do not want to venture any thicker than that because your fluff will come out. So you can see I'm just working my way around the curve. And look, every time I do it, I grab the thread and I pull it behind my needle. And this is another embroidery stitch for anybody who's been doing embroidery lately. Pull tight. Can you see how it gives me that cute little ridge? I love it. I think a blanket stitch looks so cute. And it's one of those things you can't really easily mimic on a sewing machine. Like you gotta have a sewing machine that's kind of special, so. All right. It was a little big. Let's go a little bit smaller. Front to back. And you see I have to keep wrangling my thread. Now, before we keep going, it's very important that we pay attention to the length of thread that we have working. I also thread the needle with one knot in one side because you can also adjust the length. See, I can adjust the length of the needle, the thread I'm sewing with. But what's very, very important is you want to stop when you have at least a hand's width of thread left. Because if you don't stop with at least a hand's width, it is very difficult to tie a knot. And we always have to tie knots in sewing if we don't want things to fall apart. So when I get to that point where I need, sometimes you just got to get new thread, I'm going to tie a knot and I'll thread up my needle once again. But here's where we are. And don't worry if your blanket stitch isn't as quick as mine, or if you are quicker than my blanket stitch. And you know what, this guy, he's holding him in place. I don't really need that pin anymore. You can also see I'm not, keep it behind. I'm not pulling too hard or too fast. All right, let's take a peek if anyone said anything. Lexi asked if I am going to post it somewhere else. Yep, this is going on my YouTube and it's going to be on my IGTV, so Instagram TV. I will make sure everybody can see it. I also think I'll probably just send this out as an email blast to all my students and customers so that everybody sees it, so that everybody can have a chance. If you got a llama kit or if you have felt hanging around at home. I don't know, when I was a kid, I always had felt hanging around at home. It was like one of my go-to project things. So I'm coming up around the tail. And I'm gonna keep stitching. So hopefully, while everybody stitches away, and you're making sure you're going through both layers. Can you see how if I flip them over, you can see all my stitches through both layers? If you miss a layer, you will have a hole, and we can't have holes in sewing. It is not the point. Now, as I go across the saddle, I'm gonna take my stitches a little bit deeper and go all the way into the orange, just because I think that looks nice. Going through all the layers here. This is really thick. Now look, I'm getting short, and unfortunately I'm at a tricky spot to tie a knot, but I'm gonna do it. Gonna tie a knot. So I'm gonna flip them over. I'm gonna go under here, underneath my last stitch, wrap, pull, and now here's a fun trick. Instead of cutting the thread right here so I'd have a little thread tail, I'm actually gonna take my needle and I'm gonna stick it down and through the fabric. See, I stuck it up here, right up here, and I stuck it down and through, and I'm coming out in the middle of the back. And when you do that, you help bury your knot into your project. So I'm gonna give it a little tug and cut clean right against, and look, you don't see that thread tail, and you don't really see the knot either. So all right, let's thread up another piece. Hopefully I have more hanging around, not much. Gotta prep another one. So gently, remember, gently pull off your thread. I'm gonna go a little bit bigger on this one so that I can actually get a good amount done. But here is where we are at. And I know I'm gonna lose some people as I stitch away, and that's totally fine. Hopefully on the YouTube video I can just speed it up. So here, lightly, gently pull it apart. Oops, see, I went too quick. You'll feel if you're going too quick, it'll not wanna split. See how it spins the second I let go of it? So this is, again, this is super easy to do with a friend. I'm gonna be really bad and go against my advice before. I'm gonna stick this in my mouth. I'm gonna pull it apart because it's so much easier when you have a third hand. All the way down, all the way down. Oh, balls. Whoop. There it goes. All right. So let's thread up our needle. Maybe this will get us all the way around. What do you think? I feel like by going a little bit longer, it might get me all the way around. But warning, the blanket stitch is a very thread consuming stitch. So where did we leave off? We left off over here. Where are we gonna go in? I'm gonna go in where I would have came out on the last stitch. So look, I am going in between the layers, and I'm gonna come out right where my last stitch would have came out. I'm gonna pull tight. And by doing that, I hide the knot. So see how knot's on the outside? I'm gonna poke them in. Poke that knot in, get in there. Don't need you. And my thread is crazy long. So remember I said before, we can adjust the length of the thread. I'm gonna pull that down. You just gotta be very mindful that you don't start sewing with 2 layers of thread, because then you won't be able to fix your mistakes. And you'll run out of thread a lot quicker than you expected because you've doubled it up. So again, blanket stitch, going through all 4 layers and putting my needle in front of my thread and making sure I don't get caught on anyone and pulling nice and tight. And you can help adjust that guy right where, oh, you know what? I should have come out in the front here. No, I shouldn't have. I don't know. Who knows, man? It's all good. We're just gonna pick up where we left off. Keep going. Oops, poked myself with that needle. Probably gonna have to take it out soon. Put my thread around back. So needle's out, thread around back, pull tight. Also, your hands get tired when you do a longer piece of thread. Needle through everybody, around the back, pull tight. And we're just turning and going up and around. So. So we've gone most of the way around. You can see I started here on my llama and I worked my way all the way up and around, and I've stopped here, and I'm probably gonna have to get new thread before I can finish. Honestly, if I got to like the bottom of the leg, I would probably just leave this part open. So what you're gonna do once you are done stitching, but you've left a small hole, so maybe this little section is your small hole, you're gonna grab your fluff. Woo! It's a beautiful little smushy fluffy thing. I think it's hysterical how much the kids love the fluff when they come to class. Now, a disclaimer, I do not normally work, oh look, there's a little bit of scrap fabric in here. I do not usually get polyfill. Polyfill, again, is plastic, like I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the plastic felt. This crap is no good for our planet. It is lots of little bits and pieces of microfibers or microfilaments of polyester, and that stuff is the kind of stuff that gets into our oceans and our waterways and is no good for the planet. But I love a company called Fab Scrap. And Fab Scrap has recycled fabric shoddy, they call it, and it doesn't quite feel as lovely and bouncy as fiberfill does, but you know, it doesn't have the same properties. But that stuff is amazing, and you can buy it by the half pound on their website, and I highly recommend it because it, you know, why create new when we can take something that's already here and recycle it into something else? Also, I'm a big proponent for chopping up old pillows and stuff like that, or old stuffed animals. So what I would do is you're gonna pull apart little bits of your fluff and you're gonna stuff it up in here, and you're gonna use your finger to get it up into this space. But if you can't get your fingers in there, because I think my finger might be a little bit fatter than what I've got in there, a chopstick is a very helpful tool, or even just the pen you were using before. You can put the cap back on. There are lots of tools at this point, but you're gonna make sure that you stuff that fluff all the way up in there. All the way up in there. So you gotta kind of work it into that space. And you really don't need a lot. I tried to give everybody who bought a kit a good amount. But yeah, see, there you go. I got that up in there, and the face is now a little. I'm not going to ever get it into the ears. That's not going to work, but I'd love the head to just have a little bit. I'm going to grab a little bit more, and I'm going to get into the fluff. So I'm going to get into the belly. And this is easier because I haven't stitched all the way around, but let's see if I can get the teeniest bit into that tail. I stabbed right through. You can see I left too big of a hole and I stabbed right through. Whoops. All right, we're just gonna ignore that happened. Sewing teacher, shoddy sewing. But, all right, so I feel like that's enough. Now, if you overstuff, this is just super fluffed. And if you didn't sew, if you only sewed as far as I did too, you're gonna have a hard time holding this together as you finish going around it. But you can see I'm gonna use my left hand and I'm gonna do the last stitches going around. So I am gonna finish up stitching this on my own. I really hope everyone enjoyed making a llama or felt inspired to maybe make their own little felt stuffie. So here's this. Oh, he looks like he's exploding. Hopefully I'll da, 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 da. Ba-ba. Here is my finished product. So you can see I did a blanket stitch all the way around the outside. I stitched on my little running stitches to hold my saddle on. Honestly, I kind of love her the way she is, but I might grab some glue and put a few pom-poms on her just like this one, because I love me some pom-poms. But really, you have a good time. This one I even put a bell on. And I tacked onto her head a little hanging thing, and she even got scarf because I did her around Christmas time, so I wanted her to be cozy for the cold winter weather. But she's my new springtime llama, so maybe she gets flowers. Oh my God, I think I have to make her a little flower crown. So much fun. All right, I hope everybody enjoyed today's tutorial. Again, if you have any questions, please comment on here. Email me, julia@oldspoolenj.com, and that's spool like a spool of thread. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. Please subscribe to my shop's channel. I am going to be doing more sewing classes and virtual sewing classes as the next few weeks progress while we all can't come into sewing class. And I hope you enjoyed this. So have fun crafting. Enjoy.